my dear students, there are some other very important components of a testing policies. So we need to discuss those components as well. So there's a heading, information pertaining to which applicants and employees will be tested. This is an important question which you need to be mentioned, and it must be written in inverted commas. So first, a statement regarding the testing of similarly situated applicants should appear. And that statement will appear like this. I will read it for you. All applicants applying for position identified as suitable for testing will be given the same test. It is mentioning that same test would be given for all of the applicants who are appearing for that particular position. So it needs to be mentioned in a testing policies, and it must be written in inverted commas. Such test will be job related and relevant to the selection procedures. Obviously, as we discussed about the job relatedness, so whatever the test we are using, those tests must be job related. Reasonable accommodation will be made for individuals with disabilities. This is about equal employment opportunities, that we have to accommodate all of the individuals who are disabled and they are appearing in your organization. So you have to give the reasonable accommodation and services for the disabled person. This statement should then be followed by a list of the functions that currently require tests. Then the next component in the testing policy is who will conduct and interpret test results. So we have to answer it. A general remark concerning the competency of a test administrator should begin in this section. Just see the section, it is in inverted commas as well. All testing will be carried out by those individuals having the training and expertise necessary to assume this responsibility in a professional and technically competent fashion. Just see, this component we already discussed in our previous session, that whoever are going to conduct the test, those people must need to have a training. Those people must have an expertise. They must have a professionally and technical competent fashion. So if they would have those competencies, then they are allowed to take test. The actual degree and type of expertise will be commensurate with the complexity and level of a given job. So whatever the degree and type of expertise they have, that must be mentioned with the complexity and the level of a given job. Then another very important component in a testing policy is a description of a testing conditions. As we mentioned that we must have a uniform testing conditions for all of the individuals, so the description of those testing conditions need to be given. Begin by addressing the issue of standardization like this. Each time, again in inverted commas, each time a test is administered, it must be given in exactly the same way. It must be given in the same way. It must be given in the same environment and under the same conditions, including identical duration, instructions, materials, and physical factors. Just see, within the inverted commas, we have mentioned all of those conditions, those physical factors, which must be considered uniform for each and every applicant who is going to appear for the employment test. And then another very important testing policies is about description of all tests currently used. And it would be begin with an introductory comment concerning the validation status of tests in the organization. So for instance, it is a statement, all tests used by this organization have been found to be valid. It is very important to have a valid test. Whatever the test you are currently using, it must be valid. If these tests are not valid, then don't use those tests and develop new tests which are valid. The tests need to be discriminatory, both in content and in practice. So some tests are discriminatory in terms of a content. Non-discriminatory contents are given, but that only content should not be a focus. The discrimination in practice need to be focused as well. So tests need to be non-discriminatory in practice as well. So then identify all of the tests presently being used and noting that these tests are reviewed on a regular basis for currency. So whatever test you are currently using, you need to be reviewed on a frequent basis, because it would give you the currency of the test. If the tests are not current and they are not regularly reviewed by the experts about their validation and about their non-discrimination behavior, then obviously such kind of test should not be considered as a current, valid, and non-discriminatory. So you have to review the test on a regular and a frequent basis in the organization. So these testing policies and their components must need to be considered, and it must be written. It must be written. I'm repeating it. Why I'm repeating it again? Because if it is not written, it would not be considered as a policies. It would be considered as a verbal comments by one of the experts in your organization, and it would not carry any value. It would not carry any weight. So it must be written and it must be documented, so each and every person in the organization can follow such kind of testing policies whenever they have to use them.